about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Four Horsemen podcast.
And we are back. The 2022 football season is upon us, and the moniker for this year is For the Irish. The University of Notre Dame starts off at the Ohio State University. This is going to be a banger of a game. But before we get into that, we wanted to do a full 2022 season breakdown with the boys. I'm joined by Steve and P-Wagon as always. But before we get into all of that, before we give you a breakdown of the teams, we're going to hit our new segment, the hurry up offense, and I'll pass it over to P-Wagon.
All right, the much regarded, highly complimented hurry up offense. As a reminder for the listeners at home and you two here, the hurry up offense is a 30-second rant on whatever topic you would like it to be about. The two co-hosts here cannot stop the rant until the 30-second time is up. This is giving the time for the host to have the floor. That is the hurry up offense. We're starting on the 20-yard line. And for this week, I will begin. Start the timer in 3, 2, 1, and we are off. This week, my real rant has to be about just soft fans overall. The thing that I really don't like are conference stands. People who may support one team who's won 2 games in the last 20 years, but they support the Big Ten or the SEC or the ACC or what have you. It's just ridiculous overall. I don't like it. Support your team. Conferences are stupid. And Notre Dame fans, be less soft. You're just so soft right now. Stop complaining. Fine.
It's very similar to where I was going, but I'll pitch it to Steve.
Okay. What do I want to do? Let me pull up the... All right, here we go. And 3, 2, 1. I got to say, we're going to get into it and we're going to talk more about it. But okay, yeah, Keon Keeley decommitted. Would we prefer to have him as a commitment? Yes, absolutely. You take elite talent where you get it. But you look at where this roster was. You look at where this roster is going. The delineating factor is Marcus Freeman. It's the Freeman factor. This sucks, but it will be okay. Everyone, RELAX. That's 30 seconds.
All right, I'm also going to complain about Big Ten fans. I love how when this first happened, it looked like Notre Dame might be joining the Big Ten. They were very complimentary to us, and we won't give up too much, but we do things for you. We hope you're here. You belong here. We like you. And now that it's independence leaning, it's just an absolute mess. It's so two-faced. It's, well, you suck, we don't want you anyway, we're not interested anymore, as if that's even a shred of reality. Like, the Big Ten will be interested in Notre Dame until hell freezes over. I'm just sick of it. I get it, you want us, but you're not entitled to us, and it's a pretty big move, and if we can make it work on our own, we're going to. And the reason they hate it is because nobody else can do it but Notre Dame.
Well,
am I good for time?
That was 30.
Perfect.
So it's really just stream of consciousness that we just talk and hope for the best there. So that's what the hurry up offense really has become. I hope during the season it just gets to be a little bit more and more chaotic as we go, and we're trying to get all our points in within 30 seconds. But that's our new segment. Hope you like it. If you don't, I don't care.
Well said. Well said. What are we hitting up next? Is it recruiting time?
I think we should just talk about the elephant in the room.
All right.
The white sweatshirts are on sale. Get it?
Because cheeky.
All these Notre Dame fans are upset that they couldn't get the white sweatshirt that Marcus Freeman was wearing. But they did sell them eventually. So, good on Notre Dame for coming through with a promise. What? Me?
Absolutely.
No.
You're a troll.
No, let me address something with you two, and mostly the 400 fans who listen to us. We're here to have fun. None of us graduated from a journalism school. you may take us seriously, you may rely on us for information, but I started a Jay Bramblett is the best punter in the nation trend out of fun. Like, I'm not here to be a serious journalist. I'm here to do this for fun. We aren't here to break news. We have broken news in the past because we're the best. But at the end of the day, have some fun with listening to us. We're three idiots who just get on a microphone and talk.
Yeah, but I think you're selling us short a bit too. Like we do our homework. We're pretty in touch with this. Like, I think for fan content, I don't think it gets much better. I think you guys, obviously we got this shtick going on of being the propagandist machine, but when you take a closer look, the Four Horsemen actually deliver some pretty good content. And
we have been well informed. We have been right more often than not. But really, my whole point is that these fans are taking us, and some are actually starting to get annoyed with our shtick, mostly me. And at the end of the day, take that part as the humor. But Dylan, you come up with stats. Steve, you and Steve do the recruiting side of the house. Really, we're going to have those stats, but we're also going to have fun with it at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, yes, we are a propaganda tool. I don't know how many times I have to explain this. If we were in the Soviet Union, we would have done a better job of like cutting people out of pictures than what's his name? Not Putin, but whoever that communist asshole's name was who died. Good riddance. Listen, we are here for one reason and for one reason only: to be diehard fans of the University of Notre Dame football team. And we are always and forever going to be that. And are we quite well informed? Do we all do collectively over, I would say between 40 and 80 hours a week of work, whether it's spreadsheeting, whether it's listening to recruiting, whether it's listening to podcasts, watching videos, watching tape on recruits, doing all that sort of stuff? Yeah, we are very plugged in. We read a lot and we are extremely well informed. But we are extremely well-informed fans. That's just the way that it is. And yeah, we're going to say all the time that we're going 12-0 and that we're going 2-0 in the playoffs because it's hyperbole and that's our job and that's our lane that we're going to stick in. So yeah, just have some fun. Listen once a week for 12 weeks a year and just say, you know what? Those are a bunch of absolute morons that love this football team that I just so happen to love as well. Let's go Irish. Like, that's as simple as it gets.
If we can make you feel like you're at a bar and watching the game with a bunch of locals, a bunch of homers, we've done our job. And that's really what my goal has been. Just three guys talking football, talking shop. So yeah, I just wanted to get that. That's more of the elephant in the room than anything. Keon Keeley decommitting definitely is something there, but the elephant in the room is let's just have some fun. We got 12 weeks to this season, 15 weeks overall with a bowl game and a championship game to handle. So that's where we're at. That felt good to get off my chest. But anyway, recruiting, not going to be talking about much of it. Keon Keeley did decommit. He is potentially headed elsewhere, potentially headed back to South Bend. We're not really sure what's going to be happening there. He did it via Notes app, which seems to be the trend right now. I don't have too much on this. I'll let you two handle that.
Yeah, he decommitted. It sucks. That's what happens when you're going after the top talent in the country. Alabama's the presumed favorite, but I wouldn't count Notre Dame out. Aaron Lynch was someone who flipped back at one point, defensive end. Deion Colsey did just 2 seasons ago, or at least 2 cycles ago. So it happens. Is Notre Dame the likely destination now? No, but Notre Dame's not out of it, at least not yet. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But you keep recruiting them. Obviously, he fell in love with the school for a reason. I think at this point, you're taking a step back to kind of evaluate where you are and some other places and some other schools that got on you late, like Alabama. But I think that love for Notre Dame is there. And I think if Notre Dame puts together a good season, you can convince them, look, Will Anderson is going to be drafted as high as he is because he's Will Anderson. It has nothing to do with Alabama. That's just a freaky athlete. Isaiah Foskey, on the other hand, was a 4-star that developed at Notre Dame and has turned into an absolute dynamite player on the edge. So, Notre Dame's going to have a little more evidence and some history to show Keon Keeley with Isaiah Foskey this year. So, they're still in it for Keeley, but it's a loss. There's no way around that. It's a huge loss, but the recruiting class is still in a good shape. There's no really way to spin it positively. You just have that to fall back on, that it's still a good class. And I'm still excited for it. We'll see what we can do, and there's still plenty of time left before signing day.
Yeah, would you prefer to have a top 15, player in the entire country on campus? Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you look at this team and the roster build again, just shout out to Marcus Freeman and what he's been able to help put together in a short time, and the long-term prospects of him being on campus with his recruiting, and how much of an emphasis he puts on it with Al Washington on the defensive line, and he does a great job as well. They're going to be a program that's going to be, one of the top 5 defensive lines going forward. It feels like, right? Like, we have so much talent on the line. I don't think people truly understand and appreciate just how incredible both Tyson Ford and Joshua Burnham were as a pull from last cycle, which were 2 very high 4 stars. And then we have next year coming in 24 after Keon Keeley. There's 3, 4, 5 guys on the defensive line that are potentially coming in that recruiting class that are going to be maybe not as good as Keon, but also still extremely, extremely good, and it's a lot of depth. It's a lot of talent. And sometimes those guys miss. Sometimes those top talents miss. I mean, I don't think Keeley will. I think he is genuinely a first-round pick in the future. He's an incredible athlete. Would I prefer to have him in South Bend? Yeah, absolutely. But Alabama loses out on recruiting battles too. Like, it's just, if you're going to ride with the big dogs, this is just, it's a side effect. It's a symptom of the system that you have to deal with. If you're going to be competing for championships, that means you're going to be competing for championship caliber recruits. And you're just not going to win every single one. That's just a fact of the matter. Samuel Mpemba is still on the table. Keon Keeley is not exclusively just out of Notre Dame completely and totally. Who knows what might happen? Exactly what Dylan had said. And hey, you know what? Let's see this defensive line put on a hell of a fucking performance against Clemson, against Ohio State. Let's see this team, win a whole bunch of games and potentially make a big splash at the national stage in November, December, and January. And this young man might change his mind. Obviously nil, obviously money. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's going to go into it. And if we end up losing out on him, yeah, stinks. But hey, you know what? If we do end up losing out on him at the same time, the world is going to continue spinning. I promise that's going to happen. So this is just, it's a symptom or a side effect of competing for a national title. And if you believe that Marcus Freeman is the guy, if you believe that this coaching staff is it, and if you believe that this program, which is at its healthiest point in 30 years, if you think that we are right on the cusp of competing for a national title, Keon Keeley is not going to be the last guy that this happens to. I'm sorry to break that news to you and burst your bubble, Notre Dame fans, but that's just how it's going to be. So, and another thing that we do say don't tweet at recruits all the time and all that sort of stuff, and this is kind of why. It's like, just imagine completely separate of Notre Dame. Let's say you grew up in Austin, Texas. You went to the University of Texas. You're a diehard Longhorns fan, right? And let's say, your kid is a freak athlete in high school and he commits to the University of Texas, and all of a sudden he comes home one day and he says, you know what, Dad, after a lot of consideration, I honestly think I want to go to TCU. Are you going to yell at your own son and tell him, no, you have to be a Longhorn? No, you're going to say, you know what? I would prefer that you would do this, but at the end of the day, you're my son. I love you and I support you, and you should do what's best for you. And it's the same fucking aspect with these young men. We would love for them to be in a Golden Dome. We would love for them to be on campus and underneath, the leadership of Marcus Freeman and this incredible program that we're building. But at the end of the day, if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's okay. I mean, again, I prefer Keon Keeley to be on campus in South Bend next January as an early enrollee. But he's going to make the decision that's best for his family, and just walk a mile in his shoes and his family's shoes, and just imagine if he was your son. So it is what it is. Everyone just just enjoy it. This is still an unbelievable recruiting class when you look at the last 15 years of fighting Irish football, and that's what it is.
And we may have to update the word chat to include don't tweet mean things at a recruit's parents, because that was happening too. And I get it. We had how many podcasts over the off season up until this point talking about recruiting, talking about these kids who we don't know personally. None of us have an emotional attachment to them other than the fact that they're going to our favorite university. It's at the point where fans have so much access to these players, the Instagram, the Snapchat, anything that you can think of. And it shouldn't take this much common sense. And I feel like we're being very measured with what we're saying right now. But it shouldn't take common sense to say, hey, my soon-to-be favorite player isn't coming to Notre Dame. I'm going to send angry hate mail to his family. Like, don't do that. We don't do it to we're not emailing CJ Stroud's uncle that we don't like him. Like, we're not doing stuff like that. At the end of the day, it doesn't take common sense to be a good fucking person.
That's a good point. And look, it's a two-way street. People forget that. You flip other people's commits too, right? We're trying to do that right now.
Yeah, we did
right,
with Edwards.
Right, we did it with Edwards. We're trying with Minchie. Like it's a two-way street, and sometimes you guys got to forget, or you guys can't forget. Keon Keeley's from Florida. He's a Southern guy. Football is a way of life there, and Alabama has been the best at it. There's nothing wrong with that. Does it suck that we lose him? Yes. Is that a reason to tweet mean things at someone? No, of course not. But to Steve's earlier point, you got to expect this. Look, Ohio State had a string of like 3 decommitments in a week. None of them were as good as Keeley, but that's because Ohio State's recruiting class has nobody as good as Keon in it. But the point remains, you lose guys. It happens. Alabama's got 2 top 10 quarterbacks in their class. I can't imagine both of them staying, and if they do, one's gone within a year. So this happens. But we get so wrapped up in recruiting, we forget about the bigger picture, and that's you got to play football games on the field. This isn't played on paper. It's not played on rankings. It's not played based on high school kids. It's your team. It's the coaching staff. It's the roster you have. It's the schedule you play. And I think that's what we're going to get into today is this big schedule we got coming up. And unless anyone has something to say on recruiting, I say let's talk very briefly about Ohio State because I think we'll do another podcast on this next week. But we should just preview, obviously, that game very briefly. So
very quick, Dylan, before we get into the schedule that we're going 12-0 on, I just wanted to shout out friend of the program, Harrison Leonard. Rhode Island's finest. He was a kicker on Notre Dame from Jamestown, the pride of Jamestown. He is now kicking for my local Rhode Island Rams. So I'll be sure to get out to a game. Harrison, best of luck this season. We're supporting you behind here, the Four Horsemen podcast.
That sounds good. All right, let's start with Ohio State. Returning talent is a big one, returning production. And Ohio State is among one of the most returning talent teams in the country. They're 24th, according to ESPN, Bill Connolly, in returning talent. The SP Plus has them ranked number 3 in the country. And then you look at their 2021 performance, right? They were a 2-loss team. They lost to Oregon, they lost to Michigan near the beginning of the season and near the end of the season. But Ohio State throughout 2021 was the best offense in the country. No ifs, ands, or buts. They finished number 1 in total offense and scoring offense by a lot. And they were playing a Big Ten schedule. Defensively, however, Ohio State was, shall we say, not very good last year. Ohio State was 59th in total defense. And then in scoring defense, they were 38th. Now, Ohio State is used to much better performances than that. Secondary has been an issue. And it's going to be a key part of the game. Ohio State is great. They're at home. They're returning a lot of talent. It's a big one. There's a reason we're underdogs. But I think there's a lot of reason for hope as well. And I think we'll get into that a little more next podcast. Is there anything you guys wanted to say on Ohio State before we kind of save that one for next week?
Yeah, I just wanted this point abundantly clear, and I'll make it next week as well. This is going to be the toughest first game that a Jim Knowles-led defense has had. Jim Knowles has started off the season in his time as a defensive coordinator against Missouri State twice, Tulsa, Oregon State, NC Central 3 times, Tulane, Elon twice, FIU, Richmond, Indiana State, and Illinois State. Jim Knowles may be a good coach. This is the toughest task he has. Plus, he has a game plan for a quarterback who has very limited tape. So, there you go.
Since 2010, there have been, 11 years worth of college football. There have been 6 Heisman Trophy winners, of which they were quarterbacks. And of those 6, I believe 3 of them, 3 of them or 4 of them have been quarterbacks that were their second year on campus, whether that means they were a redshirt freshman or a true sophomore, and it was their first year as a starting quarterback. Are you doing the math? Okay. I'm just going to let that pause sink in. Tyler Buckner is going to blank them in the blank. Next question.
Beat them in the horseshoe. Got it.
It's a big one. It's a big one. It's going to be a big test, but I don't want to get too much into it because we need some content for next week. So
exactly. So I have a lot more I want to say, but I want to let it simmer. So we're on to Marshall.
To be determined, right? Ohio State's a top 5 team this year, and I think Notre Dame might be as well. But there's no way around it. They're a great team. As much as we hate their fans, they're a great team. But let's get to Marshall. Marshall's an interesting case. Last year, they were pretty good offensively in total offense. I mean, they're in a weaker conference. Their talent production and production return, is quite low. They're in the hundreds there. This shouldn't be a problem for Notre Dame, especially under not Brian Kelly. This would be a game maybe in the past we would go into it 17-10 at half or something. But this should be a blowout. And I mean, you got this game at home here at Notre Dame Stadium. It's a big one just to get the season going. It's the first Marcus Freeman home game. That should be a good atmosphere there. Even though it is Marshall, that's the first time we're ever playing them. So do you guys have any thoughts on Marshall here?
Yeah.
You know, they're not usually on TV, so it's not like we have a ton of visual experience.
The right channels then, Dylan. It has to replace. Marshall does have to replace its quarterback Grant Wells, transferred to Virginia Tech. They do return their top rusher, Rashawn Ali, who recorded 1,400 yards and 23 rushing touchdowns last season. Yes, they can run. Yes, we got Kane Madden from them, lest we forget. But overall, having a new quarterback come into Notre Dame, a second game in the season, it's going to be interesting. Henry Colombi is the presumed starter. And other than Rashawn Ali and Corey Gamage, I'm not impressed by their defense. I think we're going to see all 3 quarterbacks play. I think Steve Angeli is going to score his first rushing touchdown of the year against Marshall. And I'm just excited for the game overall.
And a rare compliment to Brian Kelly. He has built this program up to the point where over the past 5 years or so, they have beaten the teams that they should have beaten. We've got too much talent to let a Nevada or a Tulsa or some bullshit, just game to drop us. We're not that program anymore. So we're just going to come home, whether we're riding off of a big win or a less than thrilling loss. However it turns out in week 1, that's okay. That doesn't mean it's the end of our season. But week 2, we're going to come back and beat the fucking brakes off them. And that's just how it is.
Can someone briefly explain to me why we're playing at 2:30 now and not 3:30? Did Indiana do something with daylight savings time?
To my knowledge, they're still in the Eastern time zone.
Yes, but I think they may have skipped on daylight savings times because we never used to play at 2:30, and I really hate that. I don't know.
I'm actually currently looking at Indiana as we speak. So a little behind the scenes for the podcast listener. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky for a work conference, and I'm right downtown, and the Ohio River is right there, and right on the other side of the Ohio River is in fact Indiana. I've still never stepped foot in Indiana. One of these days I will, obviously, for an Irish game. Louisville, Kentucky. It's interesting. Let's leave it at interesting and move on here. But I'm not certain that they've done anything with the time frame, just to kind of tie that circle up for you, Dylan.
They are in Eastern Daylight Time, so
Yeah.
that's all I got.
Yeah, something happened there. So maybe one of our listeners from the state can
Explain
let us
time
know.
zones to us. We don't understand time zones.
Well, it's not that we don't understand time zones; it's that something has changed in Indiana because the kickoffs are now an hour earlier.
I don't understand time zones.
All right, up next we got the Cal Golden
Green Jersey
Bears. It's a green jersey game. It's one I'm really looking forward to because you always get a few cupcakes on your schedule, of course, and this is one that's still a Power 5 team. It's still the Pac-12 or Pac-8 or whatever the hell they're at these days. Soon to be dead conference. The Cal Golden Bears. I really like that game. I don't know if we've ever played them before. I feel like this might be we have
4-0.
4-0. So it'll be 5-0. That's what I'm hoping for. It should be a good game there too. A good test because it'll be a step up from Marshall. And it's a good lead into the next game. So, do you guys have thoughts on Cal, or is this one that concerns you at all, or do you think this should be an easy victory for Notre Dame?
The only thing I have to say, it's another replacement quarterback. Chase Darber threw for 50 career touchdowns. Cal's bright spot was his defense last year, but they have to replace the quarterback again. This is 2 quarterbacks in 3 weeks that were facing new cats on the field. So while they've had 2 games before the Irish, that's why I got. They only returned 8 of 22 starters. So that is problematic. Steve?
Yeah, so in this case, obviously the expectation by everyone is that Notre Dame is going to win. This this is going to be the ongoing theme for basically all of the games that are not the major ones. So the major ones, let's call them out. It's going to be Clemson, BYU, Ohio State, USC. Those are the obvious ones. And there's going to be some tough teams mixed in. But with the exception of those 4, I'm going to be speaking specifically about Cal and then kind of at a broader level. It's no longer acceptable for this Notre Dame team to win football games, but just getting by, just doing their job and getting those wins. And even sometimes in the Brian Kelly era, even last year against a team like Toledo, what the hell was that, right? We can't just get to we're beating the teams that we should beat anymore. It should be we are blowing the doors off of teams. That should be the new standard. So it's not just a matter of winning and covering the spread, which Dylan, as we know, great teams do. It's a matter of beating the spread by like 10, 14, 21 points. So that's what we need to do against Cal in order, regardless of what happens in week 1, we need to show everybody we are a top 5 program through and through. We don't give a shit anymore. We are not doing this whole 31-24 bullshit with teams that we should be beating 48-14. And that's the new standard that we need to set going forward. And that's what I would expect against Cal.
Yeah, the returning production is an issue. So that's to Peace Point, and I think that could be a big one for Cal. It's nice to see them, but I'm with you, Steve. That needs to be a blowout. All right, moving on. We've got the big game of September, the second big game of September. September's a pretty rough month for Notre Dame. We'll be playing the North Carolina Tar Heels. Obviously, they took a little bit of a step back last season. But this is at Chapel Hill, so this will be a road game. It's a tricky one. They did lose a lot of production, but you expect Mac Brown's team to be a little bit better this year. I think they kind of underperformed last year. I think that's a tricky game. It's not one I'll call necessarily a trap game because I think we should do that maybe at the end, the one trap game of the year. But that's going to be tough. It's a tough environment. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame is far more talented. SP Plus projections have North Carolina in the low 30s, whereas Notre Dame in Bill Connolly's SP Plus for preseason, which is based off of returning production, recent recruiting, and recent history, has Notre Dame 7th. So look, there's a talent gap there, no doubt about it. It's a tough trip. It's a tough environment to make. I think North Carolina is a really great program. But I think that's one Notre Dame needs to win, probably by double digits, because there is a big talent gap, and we shouldn't, like to Steve's point, we should not be having these games anymore where they're 34-28 against a really bad team. So what do you guys think of that? Are you more concerned of North Carolina than I am, or are you actually less concerned?
Well, I'm concerned. I'm not going to be able to watch a game in real time, so I'm going radio silence for the second year in a row on September 24th. With that, I'll be watching the day after. So that's my biggest concern. They just announced their starting quarterback in Drake May, 6'5", 225, just dude, probably a Jack Cohn lookalike. This will be his fourth start of the season. He's played 6 games up to this point. They have their top 3 receivers coming back. That's concerning. Drake May is from a talented family of athletes. But if this game's at night, I'm more concerned than if it's an afternoon kickoff, if that makes sense, because I'm a head case.
Yeah. Well, a preliminary congrats on the sex for your anniversary weekend there, pal.
I'll actually be going to a wedding, so there's
all right. Well, egg on my face. But yeah, it's I think Dylan, you did wrap that up kind of succinctly. It's this is going to be one of those tougher teams where we should still be covering the spread. We should still be beating this team. Mac Brown is a good coach and he's building this UNC team into something pretty good. But they did lose some pretty premier talent, especially at the quarterback position, obviously. So this might be a game that you look back. You might look next year if UNC, or 2 years from now, if UNC is back on the calendar, and say, oh shit, I think this is finally the year they break through. But I've been hearing for 3 years now that UNC is going to give us a game. They've been pretty good, but I've really just not felt scared of them at any point. And I just feel like our defense still is just way so far superior, and now we're going to have Tyler Buckner to really just run all over the yard against them. So could they give us a first half scare? Theoretically, yeah. But again, win and cover is the name of the game here. I'm not particularly afraid of UNC. Not yet, but they are definitely building something.
So that brings us to our first bye week, and I think only bye week of this season. A little earlier than usual, but that wraps up September. I think this is a good idea to divide the season into thirds, right? 4 games at a time, and kind of use that as a benchmark for evaluating progress. So we would have hit the first third here. What do you think Notre Dame's record has to be after that September, which is pretty tough? You got 2 tough road games in Ohio State and North Carolina, and then you have 2 more easy home games in Marshall, and then a Power 5 team in Cal. What do you guys think in there?
No hyperbole. Minimum 3-1. I'll let you.
Yeah, if they are not a minimum of 3-1, blow up the stadium.
Yeah, is there any scenario where a 2-2 would be acceptable? Like something really happens at North Carolina?
Yeah, the thing that happens is that we're down to our backup walk-on quarterback. If the entire quarterback room gets lost in the Andes Mountains or something, like there's no reason Notre Dame should be 2-2 at the end of September.
Right. So as long as there's no major injuries, 3-1 is kind of the target. If not 4-0, of course, we're hoping to win all 4 of those games. But yeah, I agree with you. I think 3-1 is, look, if you lose to Ohio State, it's an acceptable loss, assuming the loss isn't too embarrassing. Not that I think we're going to lose or I hope anything like that. It's just that's an acceptable loss. You're playing a top 5 team on the road, and first year of a new head coaching staff. So yeah, I think 3-1. I think I agree with you guys. That doesn't mean 4-0 is out of the realm of possibility there, but you should be winning Marshall, Cal, and North Carolina, even on a tough road game. So that brings us to our Shamrock Series neutral site game at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. Notre Dame will be playing the BYU Cougars. So, folks, if you want drinks, I recommend checking out the BYU side. Shorter lines. The bathroom lines will probably be shorter too because nobody will be drinking beer. So, great idea there. Notre Dame and BYU have a little bit of history. I think they've played 8 times, and I think Notre Dame's 6-2 against them all time.
Well, it's 6 times 4-2.
Yeah, but 2 of those games were vacated by the NCAA in 2012 and 2013.
You're correct. Yes.
So BYU is an interesting one. They're returning the second most production of any college football team in this season at 88%. This was in February, so before transfers and stuff. They had a great offense last year, a pretty mediocre defense, but yet it's still BYU. Is this an upset alert game? Is this one that you're worried about?
Upset alert, no. 18 starters, 8 on offense, 10 on defense coming back. It can't be an upset if it's going to be an evenly matched opponent. I think BYU is a good team. I'm not discrediting them. They do have Jaron Hall, who is a very concerning quarterback, just because of he's kind of a Tyler Buckner type. So I'm not too concerned. It's not an upset game. I think Notre Dame's going to be properly ready for the game, especially with that 1 week off to get ready. Plus, everyone's traveling to Vegas. Allegiant Stadium, it's going to be different to play in a domed stadium. BYU doesn't have a dome. Notre Dame doesn't have a dome. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a team that's ready to step up on the big stage? And Notre Dame is a team that plays on the big stage all the time. So you wonder if any sort of jitters kind of make their way through on the Cougar side.
So now we have Stanford coming up outside of the BYU game. It's back at Notre Dame Stadium. Stanford has missed on bowl games 3 years in a row. They do return Tanner McKee, 2,300-yard passer, 15 touchdowns last year. Not a very good run game. They have Elijah Higgins and Benjamin Urasek, wide receiver and tight end, respectively. Stanford, how about them Cardinals?
Yeah, they're returning as much production as BYU is, but just quickly looking at the SP Plus projections, Stanford is 74th. It's been that kind of run for Stanford, unfortunately. I mean, what is it? Not even 10 years ago, they were probably our best rival in terms of giving us a game and a ranked game. So it kind of sucks to see Stanford fall this low, but look, you got to take your wins where you can get them. And contrary to what one Twitter account thinks, Notre Dame will not be dropping a game to Stanford at Notre Dame Stadium. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, if this was 5 years ago, then I would have showed any sort of concern. But they're going through the throes of it. Sucks. I hope they get back to some competitiveness pretty soon because they are a fun program to play when they're good. Even though they are a rival, I don't have really any animosity for them. So, hey, hopefully they make a bowl game this year. It'd be nice if they went 7-5, 8-4, but Irish are just simply too talented at this point in time, and let's just hope our boys stay focused and close that game out.
Yeah, so next we've got the UNLV Rebels at home. I don't even really want to spend time on this one.
Well,
you have to win by at least, I think, 40 points there, right?
Yeah. They're not good. They do return Cameron Friel, Mountain West Freshman of the Year. They brought in a sophomore quarterback transfer from Tennessee who was backing up Hendon Hooker, Harrison Bailey. So, yeah. UNLV.
But it's their special teams, P.
I'm talking everything now. I'm talking quarterback transfers. I'm transfer portal P-Wagon over here.
All right.
They don't have much.
And we need to win big. UNLV. Hey, cool school right off the Vegas Strip. Good for them, but not a great football team. Next team. Next game.
We'll be going to the state of New York to play the Syracuse Orange, and what will be a home game for the Fighting Irish. Not literally, but you guys know what I mean there. Anyone concerned about Syracuse? Is that an oxymoron of a statement?
P, just really quickly, it's worth noting. It's only a 5.5 hour drive from both of us, buddy.
Steve, I'm already going to the game with my entire family.
All right, I'll go screw myself.
Well, if you would like to come, we can buy another ticket, probably.
All right, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But what's your analysis on the game, on the team? What's going on, bud? What are you seeing?
Notre Dame has never lost a game that I've been in attendance for. That's going to continue this year. They do have Sean Tucker, 1,400-yard running back coming back. This does come right before Clemson, so trap game maybe. But at the end of the day, it's the Carrier Dome, now known as the JMA Wireless Dome. It's Notre Dame North. East.
Can I be honest with you guys? I kind of forgot Syracuse had a football team.
You don't remember that Dino Babers kicked a field goal when he was down 31-0?
I do. I just think Syracuse has been so irrelevant since that I actually kind of was thinking maybe they just stopped playing football.
Yeah, people forget that me and P. Wagon were both at that game at Yankee Stadium. Yeah, I mean, again, Syracuse, just a team that sometimes puts together a decent program, but this just ain't one of those years, and this ain't just, they don't have it. So, again, not only should you beat them, you should blow them out, rub their face in it, be an elite program, have the eye of a killer. It's just that's the DNA makeup of a championship program. Blow them out.
So this would be the second 4-game stretch of the schedule, making it 2/3 of the way through. I'll just say what I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong. But this has to be a 4-0. Like I don't think it's acceptable to lose to BYU, Stanford, UNLV, or Syracuse.
Correct.
That's correct.
So do we think there's a shot to lose there, and who's most likely to give it?
I am most likely to be launching myself off of the top of a building if we lose any of those games.
That's on brand.
Trap game, Cuse. Most game I'm most worried about with the travel, BYU.
Yeah, I mean BYU's the best team there. Could be a ranked matchup. I'm just gonna very quickly look at what BYU's schedule is like to see what they might be coming into that game. So BYU's schedule is at USF. They should win that one. They are at home to the Baylor Bears. That's brutal.
That's a tough game.
Then they're out. Shit. Then they're at Oregon.
So they're 1-2 right now.
I could see them taking one of those games, but yeah, I'm with you. Then they host Wyoming and then host Utah State. So they should be at least 3-2.
Don't sleep
if
on
not,
that.
if they're 4-1 and let's say they get one of those wins, either against Baylor or Oregon, and I think both of those are possible. I think those teams are flawed teams.
Agreed.
That would be a ranked matchup. As long as they go 4-1, that'd be a ranked match. If they go 5-0, they could be a top 10 team. So, I mean, I don't expect that, but that could have a lot of hype behind it, and that could make that game a little dangerous. But for me, you got to go 4-0. Heading into the big one, same week as the last time we played. It was November 7th. This time it's November 5th because, days change every year. And it'll be the Clemson Tigers, who are ranked number 4 in the preseason polls, coming to South Bend once again. Guys, am I crazy for not being super worried about this one?
No, because DJ hasn't shown anything outside of that double overtime game. It's either going to be him or you're going to have a freshman quarterback playing that game. Will Shipley seems to be made of glass, which is unfortunate. And really, Notre Dame proven that they can beat them. We lost in the ACC championship game to them, and in a hurricane. And there's been 4 losses that we shouldn't have lost to them on. But when it matters, Notre Dame wins, and this is going to be under the lights in South Bend in November.
Yeah, we're a tough team to beat at home. And we're a tough team to beat specifically at night games at home, right? The Cincinnati game last year was in the afternoon. The last time Notre Dame lost a home night game, like 2011. Do you guys have any idea when that would have been? Maybe that USC game in 2011, 2010?
I don't recall, honestly.
It's been a while is the kind of point I'm making, and there could be something obvious I'm forgetting. We don't count the 2016 season. That is absolutely not relevant. That season's a write-off. That's a write-off.
That year.
In all of the other seasons, I don't think we've lost a home night game in a while, including 2020 to Clemson. And yeah, you can say Trevor Lawrence wasn't there. They had a few injuries on the D, but that's still Clemson. That's still an elite team. And DJ Uiagalelei played better than Trevor Lawrence did in the conference championship game. So that's a huge win for Notre Dame. And you know what? I think we've done it once. I think we can do it again. It's all going to come down to quarterback play for me. If DJ is the 5-star quarterback we saw as a freshman, then I'd be a little more nervous. But he hasn't been like that. And Clemson hasn't been really Clemson as we know it, as they've been the last few years. And the recruiting, while still good, is slowing down. I just think Clemson is a program maybe on the decline a bit. And I don't mean they're going to be an 8-win team this year. I just mean I don't know if Clemson's going to be the Alabama juggernaut that they were. So I think this is a game Notre Dame should be favored in. I actually think Notre Dame should be spotted at least 3 points here for the neutral site because you give 3 points to the home team. So I would say at least 3. If not more for Notre Dame. And the fact that I think Notre Dame might be a dog, I think suggests some pretty good value there. So, you trust Dabo more than a first-year head coach, but Clemson is Trevor Lawrence was just special. He was just special, and I don't know. That's where I don't want to ramble too much on this, but what do you guys think of Clemson?
Last time Notre Dame lost a night game was against Georgia, 2017.
Right, that was a close game. One we should have won, to be fair.
Yep. And that's actually the point that I was going to make is, hey, you know what? At home during the regular season, even during any regular season game, whether it's on the road or at home, Notre Dame plays tough fucking games, man. We're a gritty team and we play well. So, DJU, I think, is actually going to be a little bit more surprising than most people think. I think there's just kind of too much talent there for him to just be as bad as he has been. I think there's been a little bit more systemic stuff at play that's kind of held him back because he is pretty talented. So I think he jumps up a little bit. I still don't think he's going to be, 2020 DJU at Notre Dame. And I still expect Notre Dame to win. Let's not overlook Clemson. They're still going to be a one hell of a football team with an absolutely fantastic and phenomenal defense, especially their front seven. And Brian Bresee is, plugging up the middle. He's an incredible defensive lineman, probably a top 15 guy. But hey, it is what it is. It's a game that it's going to be a big game. It's a game that we should win, but
Well, the defense is still elite. That's something people might forget. Is last year's Clemson defense was still amazing. They were top 2 in scoring defense. I think they were top 10 in total defense. It was the offense that was abysmal. And they're returning a middle amount of talent. The SP Plus projection has them just barely ahead of Notre Dame. So it's a good team. We don't want to downplay that. It's just the reason I'm not super worried is maybe it's because I have faith in Tyler Buckner that come November he'll be a pretty confident sophomore quarterback, and just the dual threat nature of his ability, I think, is going to be very tough for defenses to stop. And Notre Dame's defense is going to be so good this year that you're going to have to score to beat Notre Dame. You're not going to beat Notre Dame 17-3. You're going to have to score on us. And I think Ohio State has that capability. I think USC has that capability, but for reasons we'll discuss later, I'm not concerned about it. And I think there's another team in November that might have that capability, but it's not Clemson. I think Clemson has to show me they can get back to what that offense can be before I freak out about the Clemson game. But it'll be a close game. I would probably put my money on Notre Dame, but it's a tough one. It's a tough schedule too, so injuries will matter a big deal here as well.
Agreed.
P-Wagon, you got anything else to say, or are we good to move on?
No, I think we're on to Navy.
On to Navy. Is there anything to even say about Navy? It's Navy. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a lot of chop blocks that won't get called. You're going to get a lot of injuries for a game that's doing nothing for your schedule, but it's an important one. It's a traditional rival. You guys concerned about this? I feel like we haven't really had a competitive game with Navy ever since 2017.
The dark days, yeah.
Yeah. You guys worried?
I like Ty Lavatai a lot, the quarterback for Navy. Also, I respect the troops, but Navy does have a hell of a November with Cincinnati, UCF, and Army. And then Notre Dame is right in there as well. So it's Cincy, ND, UCF, Army to finish the season. So that's a rough November for them.
Yeah. I just real quick point. Another year, another time we're doing them a big favor as recompense for their assisting us back in the big war. So thank you, Navy, but also, come catch these hands in a 40-point beating.
I think that's well said. If the games were reversed, if this game that I'm about to announce was right after Clemson, it would be an automatic loss for Notre Dame, hands down. But it isn't. We get a break. We get Navy in between, but then we get the mighty Boston College Eagles at Notre Dame Stadium, November 19th. That's going to be a afternoon game. I'm nervous just because, as any Notre Dame fan will know, playing Boston College in November with hopes on the line is usually a disaster. So yeah, Boston College is going to be a good team this year. I think they're not returning a ton of production, but they're returning what I think is the most important player they've had in a while, which is Phil Dracovic, the former Notre Dame quarterback who transferred. Phil's a great quarterback. He's going to be an NFL draft pick, probably a first-round draft pick. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's mobile. that could be a tough game. Like I said, if it was after Clemson, I'd be really worried. The fact that we kind of get Navy in between, not that Navy's an easy game because they'll beat you up, physically, and they'll hurt you. But I think the curse there is a little bit lifted if it's not immediately after. Obviously, I'm talking about 1993 here. I think we should be fine, but this is my vote for the trap game, and we'll get to that later. But it's something about Boston College with that quarterback, with obviously our former coach John McNulty's there. Yeah, what do you guys think? Am I just panicking over nonsense?
Jurkovic, Flowers, Garwo. It's concerning. It's definitely senior day for ND. Jurkovic threw for 7 touchdowns and 914 yards with a broken hand. He's tough. He's Pittsburgh tough. And he would probably be starting for the Irish right now if he stayed. So it's a
I kind of hope this would be the night game. And I think Stanford should be the afternoon game, because I kind of need all the help I can get to win this one. And if playing that at 7:30 is what it takes, that's how concerned I am with Boston College. And I know that might be irrational. Steve, talk me off of this. What's your thinking?
I mean, I'm going to come in at a rational middle here. Again, it's a team that we are on paper far superior to. But I mean, we have plenty of podcasts that everyone can go and listen back to, and I've expressed a lot of love for Phil Jurkovic over the course of time when he was with us. That love is still there. He's an incredibly talented kid. He's going to be an NFL draft pick, and that makes this game all of a sudden no longer a walk in the park. So with a lot of the other lesser programs throughout this podcast, I've been saying, screw them, blow the doors off them. Like, let's be that elite team and let's be the bully and everything. But at this point, when it comes to Boston College specifically for this game and Phil Jurkovic, it's more so survive in advance. Just like, as long as you have one more point than the other team at the end of the game, job successful. Just get to USC at that point. So that's where I kind of fall. I still expect maybe a 10, 13 point win, something like that. But I honestly would not be surprised if this were a 1-score game or maybe a 10-point game or something of the sort.
Are we ready to move on to the big one? Are we ready to finally say goodbye to Boston College?
Hopefully.
I hope so.
Well, the best rivalry in college football ends the season. It'll be Notre Dame going to the LA Coliseum to play the USC Trojans under first-year head coach Lincoln Riley. They've obviously got transfers quarterback Caleb Williams from Oklahoma, who is one of the most impressive quarterbacks, especially as a freshman last year in the country. They picked up some great transfers in the wide receiver room. They picked up the kid from Pitt. USC is a great 7-on-7 team. They got great wide receivers, great running backs, great quarterbacks. Their offensive line and defensive line will be, even if they do take a step forward, they're going to be a step behind Notre Dame. That's just the way it is. Notre Dame is going to dominate the trenches, but USC's got more skill than ever. This is a game that some are kind of USC is getting a lot of hype because of the transfers and because of the coach. And this is one that people might actually think is tough for Notre Dame. What do you guys think? Because we know USC better than any program because we see them so much. What's your feeling? All right, now what's your now that we got the childish feeling over the way?
Succinct
what's your
and
adult
eloquent.
feeling?
I thought that was succinct. Whatever. Like, good, you have Caleb Williams. Good, you have Jordan Addison. Yeah, that's going to get you a couple of points. They'll combine for 14, maybe 21 points. If the line can block. Newsflash, USC fans, your line can't block. Notre Dame's defense is going to feast. And we have one of the best safeties in the country, Brandon Joseph. Ever heard of him? That's all. Like, I'm not concerned about USC whatsoever.
The SP Plus projections for the early part of the season has USC as the 46th best team in the country. They're not buying the USC hype. Obviously, that's tough.
I agree with those numbers.
Yeah.
The numbers suggest that its offense is a lot better than its defense, but I think we all knew that. Look, USC is a program we need to be better. We need them to be a better program. We need to beat a ranked USC every year. The rivalry needs it, for one, because it's been a one-sided rivalry. But two, just the schedule needs it. Notre Dame needs to start beating a good USC again. And that's something we've been lacking for quite a while, and that's not our fault, but that is what it is. This is going to be an interesting game. It's hard to project this because you're 12 games into the season. Who knows what your injuries look like? Who knows what their injuries look like? But at this point, assuming both teams are relatively healthy, you got to take Notre Dame. I think you have to, even though it is a road game and the Coliseum isn't a tough environment, but it'll get up for Notre Dame, just like, the Miami Hard Rock Stadium would. There'll be a lot of Notre Dame fans for sure. But despite that, despite the environment, despite the road game, you should be much better than USC this year. You just should be. Even with Caleb Williams, even with the receiver transfers they've added, you should be better than USC. What I'm concerned about, of course, is if you can't get to the quarterback. If Caleb Williams can start picking apart Notre Dame's defense, then that becomes a problem. And as always, how's the Notre Dame offense look? There's a lot of variables. What I want to ask you guys is this an acceptable loss to you if we lose this game?
It depends how many losses we already have on the season.
Well, let's just say 1 or 2. Let's say you've been relatively healthy. There's no it's not like we're playing with Steve Angeli at this point as a true freshman. Like, we still got our quarterbacks there. Can you see this as a loss?
No.
Yes.
Interesting.
There's a world where, their offensive line just so happens to stand up that one day. There's a world where their defense just so happens to scheme up a couple of really good plays, whether it's a sack, whether it's a fumble, an interception, and they just get some momentum, and they're obviously very talented offensively. And, that game could potentially get away from us if things just kind of fall in like the worst possible scenario. So obviously, if on any sort of pragmatic level, you look at them and say, hey, you know what? Still a team with some elite talent. They're just, they've obviously got some massive holes that we should be able to exploit. And that's the expectation. I would expect us to beat them by 10-14, just given that we can control the game, we can keep it slower, we can run the ball, we can dominate the trenches. So there's kind of that inherent confidence that I have, just given those factors and how they've kind of been our bitch. But even in years where we have outplayed them, they've still put up some points on offense, and they've still thrown that ball downfield against us. Keaton Slovis has had some decent time, and a lot of that was garbage time and second half coming out and throwing for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it's not lost upon me that a lot of it was catch up. I think that this is going to feel eerily similar to that year that Tony Jones caught that screen pass, went all the way down the sideline, and you can hear that call right in your mind right now, where the Fighting Irish are going, they're going to the playoff, when we kind of locked it up. But up to that point, it was Notre Dame was in control, but USC wasn't letting the game completely get away from them. And that's what I could see, is I could see Notre Dame being in the driver's seat throughout this game, but I could see USC not easing up the brakes and continuing to just take those deep shots and getting some, just getting some garbage time yards and touchdowns. So I don't know. It's really hard to see how it would play out, but that's kind of, in my mind, what I'm seeing in my vision.
Good thing we have, 2.5 months till this comes, but point counterpoint, Caleb Williams threw for 400 yards one time against Texas Tech. His other numbers, Oregon 242, Oklahoma State 252, Kansas 178, TCU 295, Texas 212. Like, he's throwing, he went 136 for 211, 1,900 yards, 21.
Well, he didn't start all of the games last year, right, but also like Oklahoma's blowing teams out too.
Yeah, but the other thing that the overarching point I'm trying to make is these defenses that he's throwing 200 plus yards on,
it's not good defenses.
They're not good. So like,
well, he's not going to have an issue in the Pac-12, but against Notre Dame, I'm with you.
That's where that was going eventually. I was going to get to that point eventually, but overall, I'm not concerned. We'll see what happens. My tone may change when we do the USC week. So
Of course, and look, we're just doing a kind of a brief rundown as we can within this time frame, right? Like we'll get more into this every week, but I want to ask you guys: do you want to quickly go through USC? I can read their schedule for you, and we can kind of talk about it because I like to talk about USC. It's a rival. We have some listeners. They start off at a home against Rice. You guys tell me if I'll name the game. You tell me win loss. Okay, so home to Rice.
Win.
All right, I'm gonna guess Steve says win too.
Oh, sorry, I was a little bit distracted. I don't know because my guy Litchfield Adjavon did transfer to Rice as a safety, so he might just completely dominate that game and fuck over USC, which would be hilarious. But obviously USC is gonna win that game.
Okay, at Stanford.
Win.
Home to Fresno State.
Win. Potential loss. Jake Henner. Heisman contender.
Okay, at Oregon State.
Win.
Arizona at home to Arizona State.
Win.
Home to Washington State.
Win.
None of these teams have been ranked. USC should be 6-0 heading into their big matchup. Now, I don't think they will be because USC always finds a way to lose to a Pac-12 team.
I was going to say Arizona State, like they might.
It's a home game. I could see them losing at Stanford. That's one they always struggle with at Stanford. I know we just got finished making fun of Stanford. I don't know. USC could drop a game there, but they should win all of those. That shouldn't be a problem for them. They should be 6-0 going into October, mid-October. Then they're at Utah. What do you guys think of that? Yeah, that has to be a loss. Utah's a nasty team.
Yeah,
loss. Then they have a bye. Then they're at Arizona.
Win.
Should be. Home to Cal.
Win.
Home to Colorado.
Loss.
Win.
Yeah, I'll take a win, but I see why you say loss. At UCLA.
Loss.
Loss too. I think UCLA is going to be a really good team. Then they play Notre Dame. So I think USC should be 9-2 going into that game at a minimum. I wouldn't be surprised if they're 7-4 because it's USC. They always tend to do that to us. But USC has a soft schedule. There's two good teams they have to play. Just two. Utah and Notre Dame. Now they're two really good teams, but the rest of that schedule should be better than those teams. And I think all of us there find at least 2 losses going into the Notre Dame game, if not 3 or 4. So USC is interesting. That could, if USC's a 9-2 team going into that game, that could be really hyped up. That could be, college game day. You got Notre Dame potentially getting into a playoff bid. So what I want to kind of do now, guys, is kind of wrap up. Let's talk about how we see this season going for Notre Dame. What is the expectation for them? Like, what do you think they should at least do, and what do you think they will do? And do we all agree that their ceiling is 12-0?
Yes.
Yeah, like I think at their best they can go 12-0. I'm not saying they will, but I think at their best. So, P, I'll start with you. What do you think this team should go, and what is your prediction for them?
I want to say 12-0, but they should go at least 10-2. My prediction is 12-0.
Steve?
I actually echo the sentiment. This is a 10-2 football team if we live up to expectations. And if we exceed expectations, which is my expectation, I think that 12-0 is in play. So 10-2 is a good barometer. 11-1 is most likely. 12-0 is what I honestly think it's in play.
So I wouldn't crucify them if they go 9-3 in their first year with Marcus Freeman. I wouldn't like it because it means you lost your 3 games, your 3 big games, because I think we all agree there's 3 big games on the schedule, like big. Depending on how and what, like if we're down a quarterback, okay, that's understandable. But assuming normal amount of injuries, I'm with you guys. I think 10-2 is kind of the expectation because I view it as, okay, Ohio State, you're an underdog, but you can win. Clemson should be a pick 'em that I think leans Notre Dame, and I think USC is a game that just leans Notre Dame. And I think of those three, you should probably win two. Like, I think 11-1 would be a really good and fair result for this team because they're capable of that. If they lose one of the Clemson USC games, let's say they lose to Ohio State, then 10-2 is fine. I think that's for a first-year head coach with that tough schedule. But I expect more because I think you guys are with me on this. I think Tyler Buchner is going to be good. I've always thought that. Even last year, I've seen only good things from him. They didn't use him much as a thrower, but he was dynamic when he was in the run game. He's not just a runner because we know his high school background. He was actually a pocket passer first. He can throw the ball. So I kind of am expecting Tyler Buchner to not be a Heisman candidate, but to be a starting quarterback at Notre Dame. Very dynamic. Well, I mean, it's possible. C.J. Stroud broke out as a sophomore. Tyler Buchner can as well. He can be in that conversation. And if he gets to the Heisman conversation, this team's going undefeated. So I think 10-2 is a fair expectation. I want to say 12-0 because I'm not going to pick them to lose any individual game. I'll just say on a balance, I think 11-1 would be fine and realistic. But I'm going to take them to win every game. I can't pick against them. I've done that once, and it was when we played Alabama, and that was obvious. So I think they can do it. I don't think 12-0 is unrealistic. It starts with the horseshoe. If you can go there and beat Ohio State, they're not unbeatable, right? Oregon's done it. Michigan's done it just last year. Utah almost did it in the bowl game and kind of should have. I think we can hang with them. And I think Marcus Freeman's got these boys with a different mentality. And I think Notre Dame's going to come in hungry at that game. And if they can get to an early start, they could do anything. So that's how I view the season. What do you think? You think playoffs are in our sights?
Yes.
Yeah, everything you just said, I'm in complete and total agreement with.
I think a lot of the fans would agree with that too. I think we're starting to come together as a group. I mean, you'll have your negative Nellies, but I think a lot of people see this team for what it is, which is a really talented team, just very inexperienced at the quarterback position, and of course with the coaching staff. But I believe in the coaching staff, and I believe in the quarterback. So I think it's totally possible.
And just based off that, we have one mailbag question for this week. It actually is you believing in the coaching staff is a good point here. Our friend Regison says, I was having a conversation with my dad about Freeman, and he told me that he believes that the ND higher-ups and boosters are going to do whatever it takes so that Freeman cannot fail. He thinks this because the boosters are resentful about Kelly leaving, so they are putting all their eggs in the Freeman basket. He also believes that if Freeman wins a title at ND, then he'll win more than one. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about this? So if I start second question to first question, yes, if he wins one, he's going to win 5. Like that's where it comes down to. He will win multiple if he wins one. I also think the boosters are coming to grips with going the Freeman route, the whatever it takes route, because of NIL. So it's not exclusively spite because of Kelly, but it's because of the environment we're in now.
I'm with you 100%. I would just add, if he wins one, does he stick around? If he does, then yes. If he doesn't, then I'll be happy with one. But I'm with you. I think you answered that spot on.
Yeah, and just another thing here. It's you look at the health of the program and what we're going through. It's we have to put all of our support behind Freeman. Right, it's like they can't hold out resources and make this be like, well, Marcus, if you want our support, you're gonna have to earn it. It's like, no, he's already come in and he's proven. He's had that famous quote, Notre Dame will change you if you let it. He's come in and he's all in. He's running practice. He's literally running laps with the players. Shakes every single player's hand at every single practice. He's getting these guys to buy in. He's getting the recruits. He's getting the headlines. He's getting ESQ clothing. Shout out their unbelievably comfortable shirts to sponsor him. I mean, this is a guy that has come in and he's done everything that you would have asked and expected from him, and he's blown away all the expectations. So from Notre Dame's standpoint, it's like you have to go all in on the guy and just give him everything. And I know that could potentially make us look bad or kind of give him the leverage or the power. But if that's what it takes for a national title, then that's what it takes. Because I think I'm speaking for everyone when I say that we would do literally anything at this point to get back to the promised land. And if you look at the health of this program and where it's at currently and how good we're recruiting now, if Marcus Freeman wins a national championship within the next 3 to 5 years, and he stays around, Dylan, to your point, I mean, if Notre Dame, who is incredible academic, standards, that is not the cool school. It's the school that it's you go there specifically not to take the easy way out, but to specifically take the hard way out between academics and all the other stuff that they do. It's cold. It's a miserable place in the wintertime and throughout the end of football season. If he already has the talent he has, if we already have the program that we are, which is a top 5 program, and we're there now with the stink of a team that can't win the big game, just imagine where we're going to be when we start winning the big games. Like P, to your point, once it's won, it's floodgates. Like, this is going to be 1970s prime Notre Dame in their heyday. Like, it could potentially be dynasty, because the sky's the limit with this guy. I mean, Marcus Freeman, I love you. I love you with every fiber of my being, and I trust in you, and we're just going to get to the promised land by one way or another. And that's just the way that it is.
And
I'm sure he appreciates it.
One last point. When's the last time Notre Dame put everything behind a coach? It wasn't with Kelly, obviously, because he left. Weiss, we didn't give him everything. I don't think he really wanted anything there. Willingham wasn't given a fair shake, if we're being honest. Bob Davey.
He had a few bad seasons, but yeah, I know the administration, the money wasn't there.
Yeah, so like Willingham, no. Davey, no. O'Leary lasted 5 days, and then the last coach Notre Dame gave everything to was Holtz, right?
And even then, not they throughout their tenure they pushed back on a lot. So
if you read Under the Tarnished Dome, which was written in 1993, 92 about Lou Holtz and the Irish, I just actually finished reading it. You'll see some things in there where the university gave a lot to Holtz. I'm not saying Freeman is, going Under the Tarnished Dome version 2, but the last time Notre Dame said we're all in to win a title had to be with Holtz. So that's interesting.
I'd say this is the last time I think we had a preseason schedule this hard, like looking at it from the preseason, was 2012. And those of you who remember 2012, remember how that went. That year we had USC was the number 1 ranked team in preseason. They obviously ended up being 7-5. So you never know. The schedule looks hard, but you never know by the end of it. Maybe Clemson has a meltdown. Maybe Ohio State breaks down. Who knows? But looking at this is one of the toughest schedules I've ever seen in my lifetime as a Notre Dame fan, because not only are you playing 2 top 5 teams in Clemson and Ohio State, you got a resurging USC, and then you got a bunch of really difficult, tough, good games against good teams, right? Like, they're not as good as you, but BYU, UNC, Boston College, that's a tough break. It's not like you're getting cupcakes there. So what I want to ask you guys is, what's the trap game for you on this schedule? Who are you worried about?
Syracuse, BC.
Steve?
BYU, BC.
Yeah, I'm just taking BC. Like I said, we'll see. We'll see. Well, we got to exercise those demons of BC in November after a big game. So we've obviously got some listeners that aren't Notre Dame fans, and bless you for putting up with us. What I want to do kind of quickly here, right before we lock this down, let's pick conference champions and who do you like in the playoff, and we'll rapid fire this. So I'll just say the conference, you tell me the winner, and we'll work from there. We'll go in a round table. So P, the Big Ten.
I just hope they all have fun.
The dog shit school in Columbus.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I'll take Ohio State, but I'm liking Nebraska to come out of the West. I'm
Same.
fighting for the Cornhuskers. And we're only doing the Power 5. Sorry, P. Let's go to the Pac-12.
Washington.
Utah.
I'll take Utah as well. But
Damn.
hey,
I like that a lot. I bet on Washington, but I also have a parlay with Utah on it. So
yeah, well, you're cooking either way there. Let's go to the Big 12.
Oklahoma.
Does it matter? Oklahoma. No. Baylor.
Steve, you're reading my mind. I think I was going to go with Baylor too. I like those Bears, man, and I like their coach, Dave Arnanda. Or I think I said that right. ACC, our affiliate conference.
Howoo! Wolfpack.
Wow, NC State. I didn't see that coming. Dylan, you answer. Let me think about this an extra 10 seconds.
I want to be cool and take something hip, but if I'm being honest with you, I think Clemson probably comes back and wins it. I know NC State is a popular pick right now, but I got to see it to believe it with them. I'll take Clemson, but I didn't expect Pitt to win it last year, so who knows?
I was gonna think of somebody trendy, but the more I kept going down the list, I think you're right. I think that I did want to go with Mario Cristobal and the U. The U seems like they're fun. I just don't think that they're ready quite yet. So I'll take the U to take the title next year, but this year it's gonna be Clemson, unfortunately. But hey, it's a good thing for us and strength of schedule.
And, well, I could say the SEC, or I'd rather say it. Who's going to win the Alabama-Georgia Invitational? I'm going Alabama. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's whatever.
That's whatever. Okay, so playoff. You guys feeling
before
this?
we go, Sunbelt, Southern Miss, MAC, Miami of Ohio, or Toledo, CUSA, UTEP, AAC, SMU, or Houston. Go Cougs. CUSA, I also have a bet in for UAB, Mountain West, Fresno State, and Sunbelt, Funbelt, Marshall.
You're an extraordinary human, P. We love you for it.
Who you taking in the playoffs, boys? Who's your four?
Notre Dame, Utah, Alabama.
Tough one this year. I think this year's tough. I think you're going to have a lot of really good one-loss champs.
Give me a Notre Dame, Utah semi, an Ohio State, Bama semi, and then give me Ohio State in the final again. We'll beat the bricks off of them.
I think that Ohio State is going to get the benefit of the doubt, even if Notre Dame beats them in week 1. Unfortunately, I think that Ohio State is going to break in. But what I think at the end of the season, when we compare resumes, the 4 most deserving teams are going to be Notre Dame, Alabama, Baylor, and Utah, which would be fun because we got 2 new teams.
Well, it's interesting nobody's taking 2 SEC teams because I'm on the fence with that. I think Georgia takes a step back.
Yes.
And I think the SEC only gets 1 team this year, and I think it's going to be Alabama. I think the question is, has Alabama undefeated or has Alabama had a loss? So Alabama's in for me. I would say Notre Dame and Ohio State are in. I'm going to say whoever wins that game wins out, and whoever loses will win the rest of their schedule. And then I think it's down to either Utah, Baylor,
Clemson.
Ooh, this is tough. So I'll say Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State.
Let's go with Utah. That sounds like a good program.
No, man, I'm not taking the Pac-12. There's no way I can take the Pac-12 here. I will say Baylor gets in.
All right.
I think Baylor might be able to do it. I don't know. I hate that pick. This is a tough year, and that makes it fun. I think Alabama is probably better than ever, so I think maybe it won't be as competitive as we would hope, but I think number 2 down to number 10, I think, is more competitive this year than it's been in most other years. So that should be fun, and we'll see how this goes. I mean, if Tyler Buckner is the Heisman winner, Notre Dame's winning a national championship. So I'll leave you with that.
Fair enough. Do we have any additional closing notes that we have for our fans, or are we just going to circle back next week and let everyone know our completely unfiltered and, may I add, very stupid but simultaneously extremely intelligent takes?
The only thing I got to say is be nice to everyone on Twitter. Don't be a Chicken Little, and go Irish, beat Buckeyes.
Works for me. I'm going to go enjoy the night out in Louisville, Kentucky. We will talk to you guys next week. We will serenade you with our noise. Dylan, close us out, pal.
Well, if you enjoy our content or if you just put up with it, consider giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Rate, subscribe, share. Follow us on Twitter at Horsemen Pod. Honestly, at this point, we're more of a Twitter account because we're pretty hilarious over there. If you're not there, you're missing out. So come check us out. I don't know. I watched the 1973 National Championship game against Alabama, so I'm pretty hyped up. Notre Dame's the greatest thing in the world. Clements might be the most underrated quarterback in Notre Dame history. Anything else to say? I really don't like Ohio State, and I'm really looking forward to that game. So go Irish, beat the Mouth Breathers.